Hey, my name is Marcus. I'm 26, and I work as a delivery driver for a courier service that operates all over the greater Seattle area. My days follow a predictable rhythm. Wake up at 5:30, grab whatever's left in the fridge for breakfast, usually some cereal or toast, and head out in my beat-up Honda Civic that's seen better days. By mid-afternoon, I'm weaving through traffic, hauling packages up apartment stairs and office buildings, dodging the relentless Seattle rain that seems to seep into everything. I rent a studio apartment in a complex near the industrial district, the kind of place where the walls are thin enough to hear your neighbors' arguments and the heating works when it feels like it. It's small, barely enough room for a bed, a tiny kitchenette, and a couch I found on Craigslist. But the rent's manageable mostly, and it's mine. I'm white. Grew up in a working-class family in Tacoma. My dad worked at the docks until his back gave out, and my mom bounced between retail jobs. We weren't destitute, but money was always tight. The kind of tight where you learn to make a dollar stretch, and where going out to eat meant McDonald's on a good week. I inherited that practical streak, that awareness of what things cost and how quickly savings disappear. Still, I've never gone hungry, never faced eviction, never had to choose between medication and groceries. I've learned since then that those facts matter more than I used to think. I don't have much saved up. After rent, car insurance, gas, and the occasional night out with my coworker Danny, there's not much left. No fancy vacations, no retirement plan. Just enough to keep the wheels turning, literally and figuratively. It's been almost 3 years since my last relationship, not because of some devastating heartbreak or dramatic falling out. I just got tired of the performance of dating, the carefully crafted text messages, the forced enthusiasm, the way potential partners would size me up like I was a fixer-upper they might invest in if the bones were good enough. "Where do you see yourself in 5 years?" they'd ask. And I'd fumble through some vague answer because my plan was more like, make it through this week without my transmission dying. I'd been ghosted, stood up, gently let down. Eventually, I stopped trying. Being alone felt easier, less complicated. That changed when my buddy Carlos called. We'd worked together at a warehouse job a few years back, stayed friends even after I switched to delivery work. He's one of those guys who genuinely cares, who checks in when you go quiet for too long. "Marcus, man, you can't just turn into a hermit," he said over the phone one Thursday evening, his voice mixing exasperation with concern. "My girl Keisha has this friend. She's cool, been through some stuff. Just meet her for coffee. One time. If it's a disaster, I'll cover your drinks next time we go out." I laughed it off at first. But Carlos is persistent. He knows me well enough to know I've been avoiding life more than living it. Eventually, I ran out of excuses. What was the worst that could happen? Another awkward evening I'd forget by next week. The coffee shop was in the Central District, a neighborhood I didn't know well. It was the kind of place with mismatched furniture, local art on the walls, and a chalkboard menu listing drinks I'd never heard of. I got there 15 minutes early, old habit from a delivery job where being late means lost money. I picked a table near the window with a clear view of the door and easy access to the exit if things went south. I scrolled through my phone, half watching for her, half rehearsing polite exit lines. Then she walked in. Her name was Simone. I'd learn that soon enough. She paused just inside the doorway, her eyes scanning the room with a wariness that felt deliberate, practiced. She looked to be in her late 30s, maybe early 40s, with rich, dark brown skin that caught the warm cafe lighting. Her hair was natural, pulled back into a low puff, a few silver strands visible at her temples. She wore a navy blue scrubs top under a worn gray cardigan, like she'd come straight from work. And there was a tiredness in her posture, the kind that comes from years of carrying weight most people don't see. Our eyes met. She gave a small nod and walked over, her movements economical, like someone used to navigating spaces where she might not be entirely welcome. "You must be Marcus," she said, her voice low and steady, with a slight rasp that suggested too many long shifts and not enough sleep. "Yeah, that's me. Simone, right?" I stood, extending my hand. Her handshake was firm, brief. She sat down across from me, folding her cardigan closer like armor. The barista called out an order in the background. The espresso machine hissed. "So," I started, feeling the familiar awkwardness settle in. "Carlos said you work in healthcare?" "CNA," she said, nodding. "Certified nursing assistant. I work at a nursing home in Rainier Valley. Night shifts mostly, sometimes doubles when they're short-staffed." She paused, studying my face. "You do deliveries?" Carlos said. "Yeah, courier service, packages, documents, whatever needs moving, all over the city." "Sounds busy." "It is. Pays the bills. Mostly." She smiled faintly at that. A knowing smile, the kind that said she understood exactly what "mostly" meant. We fell into the standard first date script. I asked about her work. She told me about the nursing home, the residents she cared for, the satisfaction of helping people maintain their dignity even when their bodies were failing them. She asked about my job. I told her about navigating Seattle traffic, the strange packages I'd delivered, the occasional generous tip that made a rough week bearable. It was surface-level stuff, polite and safe. But then something shifted. Simone glanced down at her coffee cup, her fingers tracing the rim. When she looked back up, her expression had changed. Harder, more resigned. "Look," she said, her tone matter-of-fact. "I should probably tell you something up front. Save us both some time." I waited, uncertain. "I'm 42, she continued. "I've got a 15-year-old son. His name's Isaiah. His daddy's not in the picture, hasn't been for years. I work 60-hour weeks just to keep us afloat. I've got medical debt from when Isaiah was sick as a baby, student loans from a nursing program I never finished, and I live in a one-bedroom apartment in Rainier Beach where we hear gunshots often enough that it doesn't wake us up anymore." She paused, meeting my eyes. Most guys, when they hear all that, they're out. So if you want to leave, now's the time. No hard feelings. The cafe noise seemed to fade. I could hear my own heartbeat, steady and sure. Her words hung in the air, not as a confession, but as a test. She was giving me an out, laying her life bare before I could get attached, before she could get hurt. I leaned forward slightly, my hands wrapped around my coffee cup. "I'm not going anywhere," I said quietly. "And if I walked out now, I think that's something I'd regret." She searched my face for a long moment, looking for the lie, the hesitation, the inevitable retreat. There was exhaustion there and doubt, but also something else, a flicker of hope, fragile and guarded. "You say that now," she said softly, "but you don't know what you're signing up for." "Maybe not," I admitted, "but I'd like to find out, if you'll let me." We sat in silence after that, not the awkward kind that begs to be filled with nervous chatter, but the necessary kind, the kind that lets truth settle between two people. The cafe sounds filtered back slowly, the hiss of steaming milk, the murmur of other conversations, the rain starting to patter against the window. Finally, Simone took a breath. "You want to know the whole story?" "If you want to tell it," I said simply. She nodded, wrapping both hands around her cup like she needed the warmth. "I got pregnant when I was 27. I was working 2 jobs, retail during the day, cleaning offices at night, trying to save up for nursing school. His father, Darnell, he seemed solid at first. Talked about marriage, building something together. But when I told him about the baby, he changed, said he wasn't ready. Disappeared within a month." Her voice was steady, practiced. This wasn't the first time she'd told this story. "My family's back in Alabama. We're not close. They're Pentecostal, very traditional, and me having a baby out of wedlock. Let's just say they made their feelings clear. So it was just me and Isaiah. I had him at Swedish hospital, complicated delivery, ended up with a C-section I couldn't afford. That's where the medical debt started. She paused, her jaw tightening. He was a good baby, happy, healthy. But when he was 2, he got meningitis. Spent a week in the ICU. I thought I was going to lose him. I listened without interrupting, imagining her, younger, terrified, alone in those sterile hospital halls. He pulled through, thank God. But the bills... She shook her head. I've been paying them off for 13 years, with interest, late fees. It never seems to go down. I work nights because they pay a differential, an extra $2 an hour. I pick up every overtime shift I can. Isaiah's in high school now, wants to go to college. I'm trying to save, but it feels like running on a treadmill. What about nursing school? I asked gently. You said you started? Yeah, about 5 years ago. Took out loans, figured it'd be worth it. CNAs make decent money, but RNs make more. But then my car broke down. Needed a new transmission. I had to choose between fixing it so I could get to work or staying in school. The car won. She gave a bitter smile. Still paying off those loans, though. $28,000 for a degree I never got. The weight of her words pressed down on me. I thought about my own struggles, tight months, the occasional overdraft fee, and realized they were nothing compared to this. I'd never had to choose between transportation and education. I'd never been a single parent. I'd never carried debt that seemed designed to drown me. And dating? I ventured. You said most guys leave when they hear all this? She laughed, a short, sharp sound. Dating as a black single mother in your 40s? It's not easy, Marcus. The guys my age, they either want someone younger with no baggage or they've got their own mess they expect you to fix. And the ones who stick around long enough to meet Isaiah, well, they usually have opinions about how I should be raising him. Like they know better after 5 minutes than I do after 15 years. She paused, then added quietly. And then there's the race thing. The race thing? You're white, Marcus. I don't know if you've thought about that, but I have. I've had to, because I've dated white guys before, and some of them were great until it got real. Until they met my family, or until I had to explain why I can't just move to a better neighborhood or why I tense up when I see cops. Some of them didn't want to do that work, didn't want to see how the world treats me different than it treats them. I swallowed, feeling the truth of her words. I won't pretend I understand everything you've been through, I said carefully, but I want to understand. I want to learn. She studied me again, longer this time. Then she nodded slowly. Okay, we'll see. We talked a while longer after that, the conversation lighter but still honest. She told me about Isaiah, how smart he was, how he wanted to study engineering, how he'd grown up too fast, watching her work herself to exhaustion, trying to help however he could. I told her about my family, about growing up with just enough but never quite enough, about the fear of falling further that kept me working jobs I didn't love. As the cafe started to empty, the rain picking up outside, I glanced at my watch. We don't have to call this a date, I suggested. No pressure, no expectations. What if we just see where it goes? Two people who don't want to face the world alone. Simone considered it, her fingers tapping against the table. Then she smiled, small but genuine. I'd like that. We stood. Paid our bills, I insisted she relented after a brief argument, and walked out into the damp evening. The sidewalk glistened under the streetlights. We didn't exchange grand promises or talk about the future. But as we parted ways, her heading toward the bus stop, me back to my car, something had shifted. This wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. Tentative and uncertain, but real. And for the first time in years, That didn't scare me. After that first meeting, our connection grew slowly, carefully, like the way Seattle's cherry blossoms bloom, gradual and then all at once. We exchanged numbers, but neither of us rushed. A couple days later, I sent a simple text. "Hope your week's going okay." She replied with a photo of her scrubs, coffee-stained and rumpled. Define okay? That became our rhythm. No pressure, just presence. We'd text throughout the week, her between shifts, me during lunch breaks in my car. Short messages, nothing heavy. Sometimes just emoji, sometimes paragraphs about our days. Our first real hangout beyond coffee happened 2 weeks later. She suggested a park near her apartment, Jefferson Park, up on Beacon Hill. I drove over on a Sunday afternoon, the one day we both had off. She was already there when I arrived, sitting on a bench overlooking the city, Isaiah beside her. He was tall for 15, lean and lanky in that teenage way, with his mother's dark eyes and a skepticism that felt earned. He wore a Seahawks hoodie and kept his earbuds in even as I approached. "Isaiah, this is Marcus," Simone said. "Marcus, my son." "Hey," I said, extending my hand. He looked at it for a long moment before shaking briefly. "Hey." We walked the park loop together, Isaiah trailing slightly behind, clearly unimpressed with having to spend his Sunday with his mom's new whatever I was. Simone seemed nervous, more guarded than she'd been at the cafe. I understood. This wasn't just about her anymore. This was about her kid, about whether I could handle the reality of her life. I didn't try too hard. I asked Isaiah about school, got one-word answers. Asked about his interests, got a shrug. Finally, I just let it be, walking alongside Simone in companionable silence while he listened to music. Later, after we'd circled back to the parking lot and Isaiah had wandered off to a bench with his phone, Simone turned to me. "He's protective," she said quietly. "He's seen guys come and go. He doesn't trust easy." "I get it," I said. "I'm not here to replace anyone or fix anything. I'm just here." She nodded, something softening in her expression. "That's more than most people offer." We started meeting up regularly after that. Sometimes just the two of us. Quick lunches when our schedules aligned, walks along the waterfront when the weather cooperated. Other times Isaiah came along, slowly warming to me in his own time. I learned not to push, not to try to be his friend. Just to be consistent, to show up when I said I would. One evening, about a month in, Simone invited me to her apartment. It was in a low-rise complex off Rainier Avenue, the kind of building that had seen better decades. The hallway smelled like old carpet and someone's cooking. Curry, maybe, mixed with cigarette smoke from a neighbor's cracked window. Her unit was on the 3rd floor, the number on the door peeling. Inside, it was small but meticulously kept. A tiny living room with a couch that had seen years of use, a kitchen barely big enough for 2 people, one bedroom that I assumed was Isaiah's, and a partitioned area where Simone slept. Just a mattress on a frame with a curtain for privacy. "It's not much," she said, almost apologetically. "It's home," I replied, meaning it. She made us tea, actual tea, not coffee for once, and we sat on the couch while Isaiah did homework at the kitchen table, earbuds in but present. We talked quietly about work. She'd had a rough shift the night before. One of her residents had passed away, a woman she'd been caring for over a year. Her family hadn't visited in months, Simone said, staring into her mug. And then they all showed up at the end, crying, making demands. Where were they when she was lonely, when she needed someone to just sit with her? I could hear the exhaustion in her voice, the accumulated weight of caring for people that society had forgotten. "You give them dignity," I said quietly. "That matters more than you know." She looked at me then, really looked, and something passed between us. A recognition, an understanding. Over the next few weeks, I started to see the patterns of her life more clearly. The way she checked her bank account obsessively, mentally calculating whether she could afford groceries and bus fare. The way she picked up extra shifts even when she was dead on her feet because Isaiah needed new shoes or there was a field trip fee. The way she navigated a world that seemed designed to keep her struggling. I saw it in small moments, too. Like when we went to a coffee shop in Capitol Hill, a nicer neighborhood, and the barista's eyes lingered on her a beat too long, a judgment in that gaze that made my skin crawl. Or when we visited a mall, and a security guard seemed to track our movements more than he did the white couples browsing nearby. Simone never said anything, but I saw the way her shoulders tensed, the way she kept her hands visible, the way she moved with a consciousness I'd never had to develop. "Does that happen a lot?" I asked once, after we'd left a store where the clerk had followed us through the aisles. "Following?" She shrugged. "Yeah, you get used to it. Or you don't, you just learn to expect it." "That's not right." "No," she agreed. "But it's reality." I started reading, trying to educate myself. Articles about systemic racism, about the wealth gap, about how neighborhoods like Rainier Beach had been redlined for decades, denied the investment that built wealth in white communities. About how single black mothers faced discrimination in housing, employment, healthcare. I'd grown up poor, but I'd never been followed in stores, never been assumed to be dangerous, never had to have the talk with a son about how to interact with police. I brought it up with Simone one evening, tentatively. "I've been learning about redlining, about how neighborhoods like yours were deliberately denied resources. I didn't realize how intentional it all was." She gave me a measured look. "It's good that you're learning. A lot of guys wouldn't bother." "I want to understand your world," I said, "not just the parts that are comfortable for me." "That means a lot," she said softly. "But understanding and living it are different things. Just keep your eyes open. And if I tell you something feels wrong or unsafe, trust me on that." "I will," I promised. Things deepened between us gradually. We weren't officially anything. Not boyfriend and girlfriend, not partners exactly. But we were becoming essential to each other. I'd find myself thinking about her during deliveries, texting her jokes to make her smile during her breaks. She'd send me photos of sunrises when she got off night shifts, the sky painted in oranges and pinks over the city. One Saturday, she asked if I wanted to come to her church. "I don't go every week," she admitted, "but it's important to me. To Isaiah, too. It's where our community is." I said yes, even though I'd grown up nominally Catholic and hadn't been to church in years. The service was at a Baptist church in the CD, a beautiful old building with tall windows and worn wooden pews that had held generations of worshipers. The congregation was predominantly black, and as I walked in beside Simone and Isaiah, I felt acutely aware of being one of the few white faces in the room. But people were warm, welcoming. An older woman named Sister Mary hugged Simone like family and shook my hand with genuine kindness. The service was unlike anything I'd experienced. Vibrant, musical, filled with call and response and genuine emotion. The choir sang with a power that raised the hair on my arms. The pastor preached about perseverance, about faith in the face of hardship, and I saw Simone nodding along, drawing strength from his words. Afterward, we stayed for a potluck in the fellowship hall. I met more of her community. Other single mothers, families struggling but supporting each other, elders who'd weathered decades of discrimination, but still found joy. I mostly listened, grateful to be included but aware this wasn't my space to dominate. On the drive home, Isaiah actually spoke to me without prompting. "You didn't look too uncomfortable in there." I glanced at him in the rearview mirror. Why would I be uncomfortable? He shrugged. Some white people get weird in black spaces, like they don't know how to act. I'm here to learn, I said honestly, not to judge or be weird about it. He nodded, a small sign of approval, and went back to his phone. In the passenger seat, Simone reached over and squeezed my hand. That summer, things came to a head in a way I hadn't anticipated. Simone had been working herself ragged. Double shifts, overtime, barely sleeping. I could see it wearing her down, the exhaustion etched into her face, the way her hands trembled when she was tired. One night, I got a call from Isaiah. It was past midnight, and his voice was tight with panic. Marcus, it's my mom. She collapsed. We're at Harborview. My heart seized. I grabbed my keys and drove through empty streets, the city a blur of streetlights and rain. At the hospital, I found Isaiah in the ER waiting room, looking young and scared in a way he usually hid. What happened? I asked, pulling him into a quick hug. She came home from her shift, said she felt dizzy. Then she just went down. They said it's exhaustion, maybe dehydration. They're running tests. We waited together, Isaiah's leg bouncing nervously, me trying to project a calm I didn't feel. Finally, a doctor came out. A tired-looking woman in scrubs who led us to a curtained-off area where Simone lay in a hospital bed, ivy in her arm, looking smaller and more vulnerable than I'd ever seen her. Hey, I said softly, pulling up a chair. Her eyes fluttered open. You didn't have to come. Yeah, I did. Isaiah stood at the foot of the bed, arms crossed, trying to hold it together. Simone reached for his hand. I'm okay, baby. Just pushed too hard. The doctor explained. Severe dehydration, exhaustion, dangerously low blood pressure. She needed rest, needed to stop working double shifts for a while. Simone nodded along, but I could see the panic in her eyes. No work meant no pay. No pay meant bills piling up, meant falling further behind. After the doctor left, and Isaiah went to get water from the vending machine, Simone turned to me, tears streaming down her face. I can't stop, she whispered. If I stop working, we lose everything. The rent, the utilities, Isaiah's school fees. I can't afford to rest. I took her hand, careful of the IV. Let me help. I can't ask you to. You're not asking, I'm offering. I've got some savings, not much, but enough to cover a couple weeks' rent while you recover, and I can pick up extra shifts. Marcus, no, that's your money. You worked for it. And I want to use it for something that matters, I said firmly. You matter. Isaiah matters. Let me do this. She cried then, really cried, the kind of tears that came from years of carrying everything alone. I held her hand and didn't try to fix it with words, just stayed present, solid. When Isaiah came back, he looked between us, his expression unreadable. Then he said quietly, We could use the help, Mom. She nodded, exhausted, defeated, but also maybe a little relieved. The next few weeks were hard. I covered her rent, $1,500 that cleaned out most of my emergency fund. I picked up weekend delivery shifts, working 12-hour days to make up the difference. Simone stayed home, resting, hating every minute of forced inactivity but slowly getting her strength back. I'd stop by after work, bringing groceries, helping Isaiah with his homework at the kitchen table while Simone slept. He opened up more during those evenings, talking about school, about wanting to study engineering at UW, about being scared his mom would work herself to death trying to make it happen. She's strong, I told him one night, but she shouldn't have to carry everything alone. He looked at me seriously. You gonna stick around? Or are you gonna bail when things get harder? It was a fair question. Brutal, but fair. I'm not going anywhere, I said, meeting his eyes. I know I'm new to this, to your lives, but I mean it. I'm here for the long haul if you'll have me." Something shifted in his expression. Not trust exactly, but the beginning of it. A willingness to believe. When Simone recovered enough to go back to work, she sat me down one evening. Isaiah out with friends, the apartment quiet around us. "I need to tell you something," she said, "about why I work so hard beyond just the bills." I waited, giving her space. "My family back in Alabama, they cut me off when I had Isaiah. Said I'd brought shame on them, that I was making ungodly choices. I haven't spoken to them in 15 years. Not when Isaiah was sick. Not when I was drowning in debt, not ever. This life," she gestured around the small apartment. "This is what I built alone. No family wealth, no safety net, no one to fall back on. Just me." She paused, her voice thick. "And then you show up. This white guy I barely know, and you just help. No judgment, no conditions, no expectation of anything in return. Do you know how rare that is? How terrifying it is to accept?" "I imagine it's terrifying," I said softly. "Letting someone in when you've had to be your own fortress. I've spent so long proving I don't need anyone," she continued. "Proving I can handle it all. And maybe I can, but maybe I don't want to anymore. Maybe I'm tired of being strong alone." I moved closer, taking both her hands in mine. "You don't have to be. I'm not here to save you or fix things, but I can stand beside you. We can carry things together." She looked at me for a long moment, searching for the catch, the angle, the inevitable disappointment. Then, slowly, she leaned her forehead against mine. "Okay," she whispered. "Together." That fall marked a turning point. We made it official. Though there was no formal announcement, no social media declaration. We were just together, partners navigating a life that was messy and complicated and real. I met more of her world. Her best friend from high school, Keisha, the one who'd set us up, welcomed me into their circle with a mix of approval and protective scrutiny. "You hurt her. I hurt you," she said with a smile that didn't quite hide the seriousness beneath. "Understood," I replied, meaning it. I learned about her hair journey, how she'd relaxed it for years, trying to fit into white corporate standards at previous jobs before finally letting it go natural. How that decision had felt both liberating and terrifying. How some patients at the nursing home made comments, how she navigated microaggressions daily. One evening, she was getting ready for a work event, some mandatory training session, and I watched her in the bathroom mirror as she carefully smoothed her hair into a low bun. "I hate doing this," she muttered, "making it professional." "It looks beautiful however you wear it," I said. She met my eyes in the mirror. "That's not how the world sees it, though. Natural black hair reads as unprofessional to a lot of people, especially older white folks." "That's ridiculous." "It is. But it's also reality. So I adapt." She turned to face me. "This is part of what I meant, Marcus. About living in my world versus understanding it. You see it as ridiculous, and it is. But I have to navigate it every day to keep my job, to keep food on the table." "I'm sorry," I said. "I'm sorry the world makes you do that." She softened slightly. "I know. And I'm not blaming you. I'm just asking you to see it. Really see it." "I will," I promised. "I am." Isaiah warmed to me gradually. We found common ground in basketball. He played for his high school team. And I'd played in high school too, though never seriously. We'd shoot hoops at the park sometimes, talking about plays and players, and slowly those conversations expanded to other things. His dreams for college, his worries about leaving his mom alone, his frustration with teachers who assumed he was less capable because of his zip code. "Mr. Patterson, my math teacher, he's always surprised when I do well," Isaiah told me once, anger simmering beneath his words. Like it's shocking that a kid from Rainier Beach can understand calculus. That's on him, I said. Not you. You're brilliant. Anyone who can't see that isn't paying attention. He dribbled the ball, contemplating. Mom says you're one of the good ones. I caught the ball, holding it. I'm just trying to be decent, but I know I've got blind spots, things I don't see because I haven't lived it. So if I mess up, tell me. He nodded, a glimmer of respect in his eyes. All right. Deal. Winter came, and with it, the holidays. Simone invited me to Christmas at her church, a big community celebration with food and music and kids running everywhere. I helped set up tables, served food alongside other volunteers, and felt welcomed in a way I hadn't expected. Afterward, back at her apartment, just the three of us, we exchanged modest gifts. I got Isaiah a book on engineering and a gift card for art supplies. He'd mentioned wanting to sketch more. For Simone, I'd saved up for a spa gift certificate, something she could use for self-care when time allowed. She got me a framed photo she'd taken, a shot of the Seattle skyline at dusk, the Space Needle silhouetted against a purple sky. To remember there's beauty even in the rain, she'd written on the back. Isaiah gave me a hand-drawn sketch of my beat-up Honda with exaggerated rust spots and the license plate reading Old AF. We all laughed, and it felt like family. That night, after Isaiah had gone to bed, Simone and I sat on the couch, the city lights visible through her window. This year, she said quietly, it's been the hardest and the best at the same time. Hardest because I had to learn to let someone in. Best because I finally did. I pulled her close. I feel the same. I didn't know how lonely I was until I wasn't anymore. She looked up at me, her dark eyes reflecting the Christmas lights we'd strung up. I love you, Marcus. I don't say that lightly. I've said it before to people who didn't deserve it. But you've earned it. My throat tightened. I love you too. All of you, all of this. The messy, complicated, beautiful reality of your life. We kissed, slow and tender, sealing something that had been building for months. Spring arrived, bringing with it new challenges and growth. Simone got promoted at work. Not to RN, she still couldn't afford to finish school, but to a senior CNA position with a small raise and better hours. It wasn't life-changing money, but it helped. I'd been saving up, putting aside what I could from extra shifts, and I proposed something one evening over dinner at her apartment. What if I moved in? I asked. Not to change everything, but to help. I'm here most nights anyway, and we could split rent and utilities. It'd help both of us. She hesitated, fear flickering across her face. That's a big step. I know, but I'm ready if you are. And we'd talk to Isaiah first, obviously. This affects him, too. We did talk to Isaiah, sitting around the kitchen table like a summit meeting. He listened, asked questions. Where would I sleep? Would I try to act like his dad? What if we broke up? I'd sleep on the couch, I answered honestly, converted to a bed. Your mom's space stays hers. And no, I'm not trying to replace your dad or be your dad. I'm just trying to be someone you can count on. As for breaking up, I glanced at Simone. We can't predict the future, but we're committed to trying, to working through problems instead of running. Isaiah considered this, then looked at his mom. It's your call, Mom. She reached for my hand across the table. Okay, let's try. I moved in a few weeks later, my belongings fitting into a couple of boxes and bags. It wasn't much. Clothes, some books, my Xbox that Isaiah immediately took interest in. The couch became my bed, a divider screen giving me some privacy. It was cramped, awkward at first, but we made it work. Living together meant seeing everything, the good and the hard. I saw how Simone budgeted to the dollar, How she'd skip meals to make sure Isaiah had enough. How she'd wake up at 2 a.m. from nightmares about debt collectors. How the weight of single parenthood had carved deep grooves of worry into her shoulders. But I also saw her joy, the way she sang along to old gospel music while cooking. How she'd dance with Isaiah in the kitchen, both of them laughing. The pride in her eyes when he brought home a good grade, or when a resident at work told her she made their day better. We developed routines. I'd cook breakfast while she got ready for work. She'd help me plan my delivery routes to save on gas. We'd take turns helping Isaiah with homework. On Sundays, we'd all go to church together, and I started to understand the importance of that community. How it sustained people through hardships I was only beginning to understand. I also continued learning, having hard conversations, like the time we got pulled over for a broken taillight. The officer was polite to me, but scrutinized Simone more closely, asking for her ID multiple times, peering into the car like he expected to find something incriminating. After he left with just a warning, Simone's hands shook on the steering wheel. "That could have gone so differently," she said quietly. "If Isaiah had been in the car, if the cop had been having a bad day, if I'd said the wrong thing." I reached over, stilling her trembling hands. "I saw it. How he treated you versus me. That was wrong." "That was reality," she corrected. "And it happens all the time. You being here, being white, probably helped. He saw you and relaxed." The injustice of it burned in my chest. "That's fucked up." "Yes, it is." We sat in the parked car, the enormity of her daily navigation settling over me. I couldn't fix it, couldn't shield her from it, but I could witness it, acknowledge it, stand beside her in it. By summer, Isaiah was preparing for his senior year, college applications looming. He'd gotten strong grades, had a solid chance at UW, but the financial aid picture was daunting. Simone lay awake nights calculating costs, trying to figure out how to make it work. One evening, I found her crying in the bathroom, financial aid forms spread around her. "I can't do it," she whispered. "Even with aid, even with loans, the gap is too big. He might have to go to community college first, and that's fine, that's good. But he wants UW so badly." I sat beside her on the bathroom floor, our backs against the tub. "We'll figure it out. Grants, scholarships, payment plans, and I'll help. Whatever I can contribute." She looked at me, tears streaming. "Why? Why would you do that? He's not your son." "Because he's part of you," I said simply, "and because he deserves a shot. Because the system's rigged against kids like him, and maybe we can't change the whole system, but we can help him beat it." She collapsed against me, sobbing, releasing years of fear and frustration. I held her, understanding this was about more than college costs. It was about everything she'd carried alone, every sacrifice, every terror that it still wouldn't be enough. We threw ourselves into scholarship applications, Isaiah working late into nights, while Simone and I helped edit essays and track deadlines. He wrote about growing up in Rainier Beach, about his mom's resilience, about wanting to design sustainable infrastructure for underserved communities. His words were powerful, raw, honest. By fall of his senior year, the acceptance letters started arriving. UW said yes. So did Seattle University and Western Washington. The financial aid packages varied, but with scholarships, grants, work study, and what Simone and I could contribute, UW became possible. The day Isaiah committed, we celebrated at the apartment with cheap champagne and takeout pizza. He wore his UW acceptance letter like a medal, and Simone cried happy tears for the first time in months. "You did this," I told her later, when it was just us. "All those years, all that work. This is your victory." "Ours," she corrected, kissing me. "I couldn't have done this year without you." We stood on her tiny balcony, the Seattle skyline spread before us, The Space Needle lit up against the night. The city that had been so hard on her, that had tried to grind her down, sparkled like it was celebrating too. "I used to think I'd never find this," she said softly. "Someone who'd stay, who'd see all of me, the poverty, the struggle, the scars from raising a kid alone, and not run. Who'd learn about my world instead of expecting me to fit into theirs." I wrapped my arms around her from behind, resting my chin on her shoulder. "I used to think my life was simple, uncomplicated, but simple isn't the same as fulfilled. You and Isaiah, this life we're building, it's hard and messy and complicated as hell, but it's real. It's full. It's everything I didn't know I needed." She turned in my arms, her eyes searching mine. "Are you sure? Really sure? Because this doesn't get easier. Isaiah goes to college, but there'll be other challenges. My job, the debt, the world that doesn't see us as a normal couple. People who'll judge us, who'll have opinions." "Let them judge," I said firmly. "I love you. I love Isaiah. I love this life. The hard parts don't scare me away. They make me want to fight harder." She kissed me then, deep and fierce, and I tasted salt from her tears mixed with hope. That winter, something shifted in how I saw myself. I'd spent years thinking of myself as just a delivery driver, someone scraping by without ambition or direction. But helping Simone and Isaiah had given me purpose. I started looking into trades, maybe electrician or plumbing courses, something that could lead to better pay, more stability. Simone encouraged it. "You're smart, Marcus. You could do more than haul packages." "I never thought about it like that," I admitted. "Always figured I'd just work until I couldn't anymore." "That's what the system wants you to think," she said, "that you should be grateful for whatever scraps they give you. But you deserve more. We all do." I enrolled in a night course at Seattle Central, basic electrical training. It was hard, balancing work and school, but Simone understood better than anyone. She'd help me study at the kitchen table while Isaiah did his own homework, the three of us working in comfortable silence. Isaiah would occasionally look up and smirk. Look at us, all studious and shit. "Language," Simone would say automatically, but she'd be smiling. Those evenings, cramped in that small apartment, struggling toward better futures, were some of the happiest of my life. By the time spring rolled around again, almost 2 years since that first coffee shop meeting, we'd settled into something solid. Not perfect. We still fought about money, about how to handle stress, about whose turn it was to buy groceries. But we fought fair, and we always came back to each other. One Saturday we took the bus out to Discovery Park, all three of us, for a rare day off together. The weather was perfect, Seattle actually sunny, the sound sparkling blue in the distance. We hiked the trails, Isaiah running ahead with his camera, taking photos for a school project. Simone and I walked hand in hand, not talking much, just being. "You know what I love?" she said eventually. "That you stuck around for the boring parts. Not just the crises or the dramatic moments, but the mundane, everyday grind." "The everyday parts are my favorite," I replied honestly. "Making coffee together, watching bad TV, arguing about whose turn it is to take out the trash. That's the real stuff." She squeezed my hand. "Yeah, it is." We found a bench overlooking the water and sat, Isaiah wandering off to photograph birds. The city spread out behind us, the mountains visible in the distance, the sky impossibly blue. "I was thinking," Simone said carefully, "about the future. Not in a scary way, just thinking. Isaiah goes to college next year, and once he's gone, it'll just be us." "Yeah," I said, wondering where this was going. "I want that," she continued. "I want us to build something beyond just surviving. Maybe save up, get a better place eventually, or take a vacation. I haven't had one in 15 years. Small things, dreams." I turned to her, seeing hope in her face. I want that too, all of it. Even knowing it'll be hard? That we'll always be fighting uphill a bit? Especially knowing that, I said, because we're good at fighting together, and because anything worth having is worth working for. She leaned her head on my shoulder, and we sat like that, watching the water, feeling the sun, holding on to this moment of peace we'd fought so hard to find. Isaiah came back eventually, flopping onto the bench beside us. "This is nice," he said, surprising us both. "Just so you know, this whole thing, you guys, it's good." Simone's eyes filled with tears. "Yeah?" "Yeah," he confirmed, then stood up, embarrassed by the emotion. "But don't get weird about it." We laughed, and he wandered off again, giving us space. "We did it," Simone whispered. "We actually built something real." "We did," I agreed, "and we're going to keep building." As the sun started to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, we gathered our things and headed back toward the bus stop. The three of us together, walking toward whatever came next. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of the future, because I wasn't facing it alone, because I'd found my place, not in a location or a job, but with these people, in this makeshift, hard-won, beautiful family we'd created from scratch. Simone squeezed my hand as we boarded the bus, and I squeezed back. A promise without words. I'm not going anywhere. I never was.